New Jersey is often seen as New York's secondary state or just a gigantic suburb, known for the Jersey Shore, boardwalks, the best hot dogs known to man, and sometimes the god-awful drivers. It's the most densely populated state in the US, well, other than DC of course. With a dense population comes the need for a proper transit network, hence NJ Transit, which provides bus, light rail, and commuter rail services around the state. NJ Transit's commuter rail serves much of the New York metro area, covering most of North Jersey, with frequent service into New York and around the state. The line that stands out the most from the rest of the lines on the commuter rail network is called the Atlantic City line, running between Philadelphia and Atlantic City. This is the only line to run into its western neighboring state, and the only line to serve New Jersey's deep south. However, South Jersey used to have an abundance of rail lines serving major destinations like Vineland, Camden, and Cape May. The question is, what happened? Well, let's talk about it. When it comes to railroad rivalries, one of the most famous examples was the fierce competition between the Pennsylvania Railroad and the Reading lines. These two major railroads in the US competed in similar markets, which mostly paid attention to taking passengers between major cities and how much coal was hauled. Over the years, there were various attempts to merge or consolidate operations, but these were often met with regulatory challenges and public opposition. With this, they thought about jointly operating a railroad. But first, let's just set the stage here. South Jersey consisted of popular seaside destinations on the Jersey Shore, like Atlantic City, Wildwood, Ocean City, and Cape May. But it also had major financial hubs like Camden and major suburbs like Vineland, located in the Delaware Valley. Rail service was provided by both the West Jersey and Seashore Railway and the Atlantic City Railroad. These fiercely competing railroads had lines that boasted some of the fastest trains in the world at the time. These railroads were also subsidiaries of the Pennsy and Reading respectively. In the 1930s, more specifically the year of 1933, the Interstate Commerce Commission, or ICC, basically forced the Pennsy and the Reading into jointly operating the commuter rail network serving Philly area residents in South Jersey and the popular shore cities, forming the Pennsylvania Reading Seashore lines. While the main line, and by far the most important line, ran between Atlantic City and Camden, there existed several other lines serving populous suburbs in South Jersey. When I say this railroad was massive, I mean massive for a state of this size. The PRSL had lines serving places like Penns Grove, Wildwood, Ocean City, Bridgeton, and Salem according to the Reading modeler. With this many lines sparked the need for a big fleet of locomotives. Like most American railroads, they started out with steam locomotives, and a lot of them. They were mostly inherited from the PRR because they were previously used by the West Jersey and Seashore, which was a PRR subsidiary as mentioned earlier. Steam locomotive classes consisted of Class B, E, G, H, and K, ranging from small yard switches to freight haulers to fast locomotives meant for express commuter service. As the story usually goes, steam locomotives remained the main source of power until the mid-1950s, when the dieselization process became popular around America due to cleanliness and cost effectiveness. When it came to diesel locomotives, the PRSL mostly stuck to products built by Baldwin, like the AS-16 and the S-12 locomotives respectively. According to Wikipedia, the PRSL's diesel locomotives are almost all painted in what is commonly referred to as Brunswick green, which was so dark it almost looked black. The paint scheme was borrowed from its PRR parent, and with the company's official name for this color being DGLE, or dark green locomotive enamel. The undercarriage of these locomotives were painted in black, referred to as true black. When it came to passenger service, the PRSL stuck to mostly Butt RDCs and a few Doodlebug railcars they had left. Some of the Baldwin diesels were also used for commuter service as well. The use of almost entirely PRR-owned or hand-down equipment was a result of a historic agreement. The Pensy's Motive Power Department was responsible for maintaining and supplying PRSL's locomotive fleet. The PRSL actually had electrified service as well, however, according to American Rails, that only went between Camden and Bridgeton. However, this did not include PATCO, which we'll get into momentarily. The PRSL prioritized speed with its operations, so much so that in the 1950s, trains on the nearly complete straight line between Camden and Atlantic City did their runs in just 50 minutes. usually topping out at 80 miles per hour maximum. By the way, this line was over 80 miles long. This plays back to the Atlantic City Railroad's 442 Atlantics, which reached a staggering top speed of 100 miles per hour times. However, with the usual case of competition, things quickly went downhill. Since the PRSL relied so much on travelers, it was susceptible to highways and interstates, and was particularly hurt after a series of new roadways were being built following World War II. This was the case with most American railroads when it came to their passenger operations. Highway construction in New Jersey boomed, with major highways like the Garden State Parkway being built in the mid-40s and late 50s, and the New Jersey Turnpike being completed in 1952. This hurt the PRSL substantially. With these new highways being built, the state of New Jersey quickly grew hostile towards railroads in general, with the most prominent example of this being with the C&J. According to American Rails, once again, the C&J had to pay exorbitant property taxes while dealing with the loss of their passenger and freight traffic from subsidized highways. Now, what is PATCO? PATCO is a high-speed rapid transit line connecting Philadelphia's center city with Camden and select suburbs, terminating at Lindenwood, allowing commuters to change to the Atlantic City line. PATCO is what Alan Fisher likes to call America's first modern subway. While I would love to discuss the history of this incredibly unique rapid transit line, I won't be doing that today to save video length. And plus, Alan Fisher already has a great video on it. You should go check it out. What I will do though is this. PATCO, being opened in 1969 as the Speed Line, or sometimes called the Lindenwood Line or the High Speed Line, is an extremely important and modern rail line connecting Camden with Lindenwood with select suburbs in between, as mentioned previously. With the PRSL still in decline, most of its lines closed outside of its main line, but what makes matters worse is that the main line's northern terminus in Camden, called Broadway Station, would also close, with Lindenwood being the terminus, which is also the eastern terminus of PATCO. PATCO was a huge help during the PRSL's decline because it provided faster and more frequent service into Camden and Philadelphia's center city. PRSL still helped out a ton because while the majority of its lines were closed, a few were still open for commuters and tourists headed to Cape May and Ocean City. These commuter services were funded by NJ DOT. By this time, the PRSL had almost nothing but a few RDCs left because freight service was now operated by the Shore Fast Line Railroad. Due to poorer track conditions as time passed, the Ocean City and Cape May branches closed in the mid-70s, leaving the main line to Atlantic City the only active line left, and even then it was struggling to survive as well. That was until 1976. While PRSL never completely went bankrupt, Penn Central, who owned it at the time, did, and we all know how that went. Because of this, Conrail took over the PRSL's operations that year, along with its equipment. Conrail operated the few RDCs left in the entire state of New Jersey until around 1981, when NJDOT finally cut all South Jersey rail services due to an extreme lack of performance compared to other rail lines. However, there were talks of restoration almost immediately, but the first actual act didn't come through until 1989, when Amtrak's Atlantic City Express was inaugurated. I actually have a whole video dedicated to this train, so if you wish to check it out, it'll be in the pinned comment. Essentially, this was a train that connected the Northeast Corridor to Atlantic City by way of a series of switches outside of Philadelphia's 30th Street station. At first, it did extremely well. What with NJ Transit providing more frequent service, casinos suddenly closing and refusing to pay, and the money drastically dropping, Amtrak dropped the train in 1995. These days, NJ Transit's Atlantic City line remains as the only commuter rail line in South Jersey, excluding PATCO and the River Line Light Rail, and the only one to serve both Atlantic City and Philadelphia. With 12 round trips a day every day, it's known to rail fans as having the fastest regularly operating diesel locomotives in New Jersey, with the line's speed limit being 80 miles per hour. The ACL also has a series of connections to other rail lines and several buses at almost every station, with notable examples being Lindenwood, Atlantic City, and Philly. Ride time is typically around an hour and a half. That is if you don't get stuck outside of Philly. South Jersey, while drastically underserved by public transit, is still an important region in the state of New Jersey nonetheless, with popular tourist attractions, financial hubs, and major suburbs. In this video, I summarized the rise and fall of its massive rail network and why it was so important, along with giving examples of today's options. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll hope to see you in the next one. Have a good day.